Tell us the latest on Watson. I was going to say tell us the teams involved, but who knows? Maybe there's more that have been added to this list that grows by the day, and ultimately it's Deshaun Watson's choice because of the no-trade clause.
People seem to lose sight of that fact. The truth is he's had 4 NFC South teams interested in him. Obviously, Tampa Bay withdrew that interest Sunday when Tom Brady announced that he's returning. He's got the others interested in him, and ordinarily that would be good, but because you would have competition. But say that Carolina offered 3 number ones, 2 twos, and 2 defensive starters like pass rusher Brian Burns and safety Jeremy Chin, which would solve 2 huge needs on the Texans defense. And Atlanta said, we'll give you 2 twos and a 1. And Nick Caserio, the general manager, would say, look, that's not fair. There's no way we're taking the offer from Atlanta. We want to trade Watson to Carolina. And Watson goes, no, I'm not going to Carolina. I will only go to Atlanta. Then the only thing that they could do, if indeed he wanted them to take a lowball offer, would be to say, okay, you either go to Carolina or you sit out next season, 2 seasons in a row. You won't play. We'll pay you $35 million. That's tip money to an NFL owner. And we'll let you sit out again. Then it would become a game of chicken. You hope that all the offers would be similar. Texans have been looking for 3 1s, 2 2s, and a couple of starters. They would have taken less than Miami right before the trade deadline, 3 1s, a 3, and a 5. And then I think once Russell Wilson was traded for such a haul from Denver, their price probably went up. And he's also meeting with Cleveland. I have no idea why. Texans have no interest in Baker Mayfield. He's coming off shoulder surgery. He's in the last year of his contract. He hasn't lived up to being the number 1 pick in the draft. And the weather in Cleveland playing on the banks of Lake Erie can be the worst in the NFL. And Watson's 1 game there in 2020 in the middle of November. The weather was so bad with wind, rain, and lightning, they had to evacuate the stadium, and he averaged 3.2 yards per attempt. So the Texans are giving approval to whoever he wants to meet with. And they're coming in here like he's a dignitary, and they're coming to pay respects. But ultimately, he has to approve the deal. New Orleans, not a lot of players I don't think they would want. They don't want veterans. They want young, talented guys on their first contracts because the Texans are still rebuilding. And New Orleans could give them a first, second, and a low third-round pick, which would give Texans 7 of the first 100 this season. And then there'll be more to pay the next 2 seasons. And the big question with the Falcons, what happens to Matt Ryan? Texans have no interest in Matt Ryan. They just redid his contract to lower his cap figure from $48 to $36 million. And if they trade him, they get a $55 million dead hit if it's before June 1st.
John, I'm curious if there's the right happy medium, the right matching point where Deshaun Watson goes to a team he wants to go to and he approves it, and that team has the capital and what they can trade away that the Texans want. Let's look at this strictly from Deshaun Watson's side. You've seen all the options out there. You just laid it out there nicely. What do you think is the best option for Deshaun Watson from a football standpoint? If he's making a football decision of where he could go, what's number 1 on your list of the options you've seen?
Well, the only one of those teams that had a winning record last year were the Saints, but they've lost their coach, Sean Payton. Dennis Allen, who was fired in his first stint as a head coach, has taken over. Saints have humongous salary cap issues, as does Atlanta. Carolina could absorb his $35 million contract, which comes out of your cap immediately, unless you redo that contract, extend it even more, and lower that cap figure this year. But it's $35 million he's going to earn on a base salary. So I would think that the Saints have been historically better, but that was with Sean Payton. Carolina, which is close to his hometown in Gainesville, Georgia, Matt Rule could be fired next season if they don't win. But their owner, David Tepper, wants a new stadium. Best way to get a new stadium is to win. You start with a franchise quarterback. As far as Atlanta, there's been a lot of talk about them getting another quarterback instead of Matt Ryan. But when they restructured his deal, they said they committed to him. He'll be 37 next season. And none of them have won. A team that was interested, Seattle, has a lot of draft capital. You know, they lost last season, but they won the year before, and they've got Pete Carroll and John Schneider, and they do have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as their receivers, and now young tight end Noah Fant. That would be a prolific passing game, but I think he don't want to move all the way across the country. It's pretty obvious he wants to stay in the Eastern or Central time zones.
John McClain with us from the Houston Chronicle joins us weekly on Outkick. John, did the Colts call the Texans, and did the Texans say no?
Well, of course they would say no. I can't believe Chris Ballard insulted them enough to call to see if they would trade him within the division. And of course they would not. Indy's desperate for a quarterback after they traded Carson Wentz. They're going to have their fifth in 5 years. Maybe they would be interested in Matt Ryan. Maybe the Colts would be interested in Jimmy Garoppolo or Jordan Love. They got to do something there, but I guess you do your due diligence. That phone call, I doubt it's even a phone call. I bet it was a text with a quick no.
Well, I'm curious. So are teams calling the Texans, or are they calling Watson's representation? How is this going down?
Yeah, you have to call the Texans. It's tampering if you don't. He's under contract. So the Texans have to give permission, and then they talk to Watson, and ultimately it's going to come down to which team he waives his no trade clause for. Teams are going for a lot of trouble, and he may say, hey, sorry, bud, I'm not coming there. And they could have traded him to Philadelphia last season, but he rejected Philadelphia. There's a report he rejected Carolina. Technically he rejected the Titans. Technically he rejected everybody because he said, I'm only going to Miami.
Yeah, and I bring that question up about who they call, who these teams call, because, I mean, if Watson said, I want to go to Indy, that's where he would go, right?
No, they would let him sit out next season
and pay
not
him?
play him. Before, of course, $35 million. The Rockets are paying John Wall $40 million not to play. We can't think of $35 million in our terms. We have to think of it like NFL teams get $300 million a year for TV before they ever get gambling revenue or memorabilia revenue before they ever sell a ticket. So $35 million is chump change to an NFL owner.